Hi folks, it's Florida Man here, but you probably expected that already. This video is part of something I hope will turn out rather special, a series of videos I've made about a single game. Not a game I played in, but a game I GM'd. Over the course of the game, I had the opportunity to interview each player to some extent, so it's my hope that these videos will be interesting to you for providing multiple perspectives on the game years. The game was called Talleyrand, and what follows is 1901.
How's it going? I'm playing Germany in this game. I like playing Germany because you get to talk to everybody and you have your hands in every sort of thing that's going on around the board. So before 1901, I tried to talk to everybody. Had good negotiations. I think the thing I was most excited about was the idea of forming a central alliance with Italy and Austria. Both of them said that they were on board, and so I was interested in seeing where that could go. Had good conversations with both France and England, so I wasn't sure exactly whose side I was going to be on there. Italy thought I should work with England against France, which I was thinking about doing, but was actually kind of more interested in going after England. France proposed we do a sea lion, which Russia said he was on board with, but didn't want to open Moscow to St. Petersburg, but said he could be interested in building a fleet in, I don't know if he specified a fleet, but said he would be interested in building in St. Petersburg come winter 1901. So that was a possibility as well. Russia was very clear that if I didn't let him into Sweden, he was going to strongly consider allying with England against me. Don't know if that's an empty threat or if he's really wanting to do that, but not sure still whether I'm going to let him into Sweden or not. I think I will. We'll see.
Hello, Zach Moore.
Hey, good morning, Florida Man.
So, thank you for participating in this game with us, and why don't you give us some background on yourself and tell the listeners which country you're playing.
Okay, yeah, my name is Zachary Moore. I've been playing diplomacy for 5 years. Started in face-to-face tournaments, traveling to Chicago for Weasel Moot. Ended up starting a local club in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, with a couple friends that has been going on for a couple of years, and also run the Virtual Diplomacy League, which started back in March, I suppose, with COVID. So very involved with mostly face-to-face diplomacy, but I like to take an opportunity to play in a press game every once in a while, even though I am no good at it. And speaking of being no good at it, I am playing as Austria in this game. I spoke with Italy, Russia, and Turkey, obviously my neighbors. My first impression of Italy was that he seemed abnormally interested in what I was doing with Trieste. I feel that most Italy-Austria, it's almost assumed that it's going to Albania, and like an Italian player isn't going to really ask multiple specific questions about that unit. But I do like to work with Italy. I was a little concerned with that, so I was a little nervous about the Italian player. The Russian player was a guy who I felt good about for the first half of the negotiations. We had set up a DMZ in Galicia. He expressed some discomfort with the Turkish player, but I caught him in a lie in the second half of negotiations, which doesn't often happen in spring 1901. I think it's pretty rare to make a mistake that early. But he told me that the Turkish player had not sent him a single message the entire game. Oh. And I was talking to the Turkish player at the time, so it seemed weird that the Turkish player would have sent multiple messages to me but not any to Russia. And at almost the minutes after Russia said that, Turkey told me that he had extensive conversations with Russia in spring 1901. So I'm thinking, well, who's realistically lying here? Probably not Turkey, probably Russia. So I went ahead and covered Galicia.
We can see that covering Galicia was, in fact, a productive move on your part.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you're thinking looking at this map right now.
I'm thinking I should have 3 friends. I feel like everybody should love me. But I hate this opening. I haven't used it in about 2 years in any games.
Southern Hedgehog.
Absolutely. It's got a name. It's infamous. I loved it when I didn't know what I was doing, and I hate it now that I think I've grown as a player. My initial moves that I ordered is my favorite opening is Austria, is Trieste to Albania, Budapest to Serbia, Vienna to Trieste, because then I like to slide Trieste into Albania in the fall and build two. I love that position. But when I realized I had to cover Galicia, I still had a terrible feeling about Italy based on his messages. So I thought, let's just do the full hedgehog and we'll sort this out in the fall. So that's what I've been frantically trying to do since the moose process, to sort out who's my friend and who's my enemy.
Well, what's it looking like as to who's your friend and who's your enemy?
It's looking like I have 0 friends and 3 enemies, but I'm going to see if I can swing somebody. Luckily, I mean, I got bailed out with Smyrna to Armenia because clearly Russia was expecting a friendly Turkish player, and he didn't get that. Italy keeps on telling me that I attacked him, which is news to me because I don't think most experienced players see the Southern Hedgehog as an anti-Italian move at all. I think it's pretty self-evident that I'm not going to take Venice. That unit's going to be dislodged and removed from the board. So again, I feel like I can't get on the same page with him. Turkey, if you can believe it, also felt slighted by these moves because he wanted me to move to Budapest. And I'm telling him, you can see why I didn't, right? Like, that's clear to you why I didn't move to Budapest. But he's like, no, man, we had a deal. You were moving to Budapest. Okay. Part of me thinks maybe I cut a deal with the Russian, but I still have a couple hours to see if maybe I can show Turkey the light because if he's just a less experienced player, there's a chance I can explain it to him. I don't know.
You know, there's an expression that you can't please everybody. And sometimes it's true that you can't please anybody.
That seems to very much be the case.
Hi, so I'm Italy. This is a fun game. And as Italy, I kind of have a mantra that Italy and Austria, their fates are tied. Whenever I play Austria, I kind of play the same way. But typically, if Italy goes down, Austria does too. And if Austria goes down, Italy's normally next to follow. So my strategy as one of those powers is always reach out to the other and say, hey, let's get along. And I want to DMZ Venice and Trieste so we can get our units out somewhere else and get along. And I offered that to Austria. And at first they said, I only want to DMZ Tyre and the Adriatic. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then Germany reached out and said that they wanted to also DMZ Tyre. So I floated the idea of let's do the Central Triple, which, side note, I have issues calling it the Central Powers because historically this is based around World War I. The Central Powers is Germany, Austria, Turkey. And I feel like that's a misnomer to call it the Central Powers, and I have a gripe with that. So Germany offered to the Central Triple, and I was like, great, that's an awesome way to do a three-way alliance. I am all in for that. And so I offered it again to Austria, like, hey, I'm going to vacate Venice. You can go down to Albania, pick up Greece, get your +2. It'll be great. And I had every intention of following through with that. And there was something that Austria said that made me a little worried. So I was going to do Venice to Tuscany and Rome to Naples so I could convoy into Tunis. But like Austria just didn't seem enthusiastic. So I moved my armies to Apulia and Tuscany, just in case they stabbed me in Venice so I could take it back. Turns out that was smart because Austria then decided to stab me and take Venice. Another factor in all of this equation is my conversations with France. France, I wanted to DMZ Piedmont, and they wanted to DMZ Piedmont, Lyon, Western Mediterranean, and Theiss. And I feel like that is way too much. But they're really pushing for it, and I know France can get 2 or 3 SCs out of the gate, and so I was willing to concede that. As far as relations with Turkey, so my strategy is kind of reach out to everyone and see who responds and see who wants to play ball. Turkey seemed like they wanted to play ball. Russia seemed like they wanted to do the Russia-Italy pinch, and originally we talked about, okay, let's pinch Turkey first and then get Austria. But after we found out that Austria stabbed me, we're like, you know what? Let's get Austria. So after Austria stabbed me, they responded saying, I was trying to prevent the Bohemian Crusher. And basically, I call bullshit. I think if Austria, I think they would have preferred that I had moved to Naples with that army instead, and therefore not been in a position to take back Venice. And I think if that was a situation, then Austria would have been like, sucks to be you. I'm keeping my fleet there. You lost. So I think now they're trying to backtrack and save face by saying, I'm trying to prevent the Bohemian Crusher. And so I'd never heard of this. I had to look it up. It's referred to as, I think the phrasing is, a neglected Italian move. I'm like, exactly. There's a reason the Italians don't do that. So for context, the Bohemian Crusher had been Venice to Tyre and then Rome to Venice. And the reason Italians don't do that is because it pisses off Austria right out of the gate, and then you lose all social capital and relationships you have. So I was not going to do that. Either they were paranoid about that, or they were going for the spring stab, which I think is a bad idea. I don't know. You'll have to ask Austria what they were thinking and why they did that.
I will.
Regardless, I think it was a really dumb move because we had a central triple set up. We were going to be in a good three-way, and they decided just to give me the middle finger right out of the gate. So even if we, from here on out, even if we repair relations, we will never trust each other the rest of the game. And we will always have to spend one unit in Venice and Trieste, no matter what. So now I'm in the position where after they stabbed, Germany wasn't happy about it. France was surprised. And then Turkey reached out, and Turkey offered basically an anti-Austria move, where it's not necessarily a three-way for the win. It's very clearly let's just all team up and destroy Austria because we can. I'm like, sure. So Austria, or Turkey and Russia, appeared to not be getting along because Turkey moved that army to Armenia, and it looks like in the conversation, Turkey kept saying, just make sure you use your fleet in Sevastopol to take Romania. And that doesn't make sense for Russia because then their army in Armenia can just walk right into Sevastopol.
It does seem a little dangerous, doesn't it?
It's dumb for two reasons. One, for the Russia side, it's a very poor tactical choice for them to use Sevastopol to take Romania rather than Ukraine. And two, on Turkey's side, by offering that, it sows the seed of, I don't trust you with Russia. And my private chat with Russia, Russia has expressed, like, I don't trust the Turks. And so I'm going to try and capitalize on that. So yeah, I don't trust them either. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm still feeding intel with Germany. I think we're getting along fine. We have no reason to not trust each other right now. And I tried setting up an intel arrangement with England, but I tried giving them a tip, like, it looks like France is moving to the mid-Atlantic. And I don't know if they acted on that tip or if they were going to move to the English Channel anyhow on their own. But right now, England is playing their cards very close to their chest. Do not want to tell me if they're going to take France or Germany's side. And that's fine. I respect that. So if I end up stabbing France, it'll only be if I know Germany and England are on board with that as well. So we'll see what happens here in a couple of hours when fall is adjudicated.
Is there anything else that surprised or interested you about what happened in spring?
So I counted 2, probably 3 stabs in spring, and I feel that is really, really high for a game of diplomacy. The one stab, the obvious one, is Austria moving to Venice. But then also Turkey moving that army from Smyrna to Armenia, that is absolutely a stab. Then the one I'm not clear about is the 2 fleets bouncing in the English Channel. That could have been arranged as a way to throw everyone off, or that could have been 2 stabs that failed. So either way, we're looking at a game with a really, really high stab and mistrust count.
I guess people are just really trying to impress the audience.
What's that?
I guess people are just trying to impress the audience.
I don't know. I have a personal rule that I do not stab in the year 1901 unless I am playing Russia or I'm stabbing Russia.
Oh, that's a really interesting rule, and I can sort of see it. Maybe you could explain that, though. That's interesting.
So I can send you these. I have my 8 personal rules for game diplomacy.
I would love for you to send me those, or even for you to just read them out loud. But first, actually, I should have you tell me. What your expectations are for the fall, and then we can get to your 8 personal rules for dating your teenage daughter.
Yeah,
that sounds interesting.
So for fall, I'll start on the right of the map and I'll move left. I think at the end of the day, Turkey is going to try for Sevastopol again. and I have a hunch that Turkey is going to go for this Austria-Turkey alliance, and they're going to either bounce Russia out of Romania or support the Austrians in or something. I don't think they're going to move against me, but I think they are going to try and work with Austria against Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I think Russia is going to follow through with what they said, Ukraine to Romania with Sevastopol support and Warsaw to Galicia. Austria, I know that I'm going to destroy that army, that fleet in Venice. And I've told Austria the way that they can repair relations is disband that fleet and then rebuild it as an army. So if Austria wants to get back into the Central Triple, that's what they're going to have to do. And I'm still not sure if I'm going to trust them after that point. As for Germany, I do not think Germany is going to do the Sweden bounce. I think they're going to stay on good terms with Russia. I think they're going to have to pull Kiel back to Munich, and I think they'll take Ruhr to Holland. I don't think they'll contest for Belgium. For England, I think they're going to try and they're going to pick up Norway. It's just a question if they convoy the army over and therefore threaten Russia, or if they take it with fleet. I don't know. As for France, France is a good player. I mean, Gascony is going to Spain for sure. I have no idea if France is going to try for Munich or not. And I'm hoping that that fleet in Brest moves to Mao, because I want them to build that fleet in Brest. I do not want them to build anything in Marseille. So that's my thought.
All right.
My orders are, everyone knows my orders. I'm taking Tunis, and I'm going to kick them out of Venice. That's it. I have no other options.
Yeah, your orders have been simplified, I will say. You had so many choices you had to make, and now...
I am very upset at Austria that they forced me into that corner. Because if they had not done this, then I could have kept a fleet in Ion that could have helped move on Turkey a season ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we could have kept our Central Triple going. But they decided to give me the middle finger and screw that over. And now that fleet is going to be otherwise occupied. Oh well.
Why don't you introduce yourself and which country you're playing, and then we can talk about how things are going.
Perfect. Yes, so my name is Ari, also known as Animal CS Online, and I am playing Turkey in this game. I've played Diplomacy for a number of years, but I've gotten much more into it recently. I think decently due to coronavirus, but also just due to changing times in life. So, kind of trying to learn much more of the strategy rather than just kind of, going into negotiations and whatever, just with kind of intuition. So, that's definitely helped my game to improve. But anyways, so yeah, I'm playing Turkey in this game. In the spring, I got a chance to talk to everyone, but I didn't get a chance to exchange too many messages with some of the players. Most notably, I didn't talk too much with Russia, and I wanted to talk more. They sent short messages most of the time, which kind of worried me because I normally when someone sends such short messages, I feel like they're trying to hide something, or they're not really reliable. And talking to a couple of the other countries on the board, they said the same thing. And so that made me decide to do the Smyrna to Armenia opening, which is kind of my default opening actually for Turkey. I find that moving Smyrna to Constantinople often doesn't really get you anywhere. And so I really prefer to either move to Armenia or to Syria. The Syria move being useful because it both tells Italy that they're not going to make a successful convoy into Syria, and potentially later opens the door to moving Syria to Armenia if Russia's in a position that can be stabbed. But either way, so I kind of had this default opening set. And since I hadn't talked to Russia too much, I hadn't changed it. If I had the chance to talk more, I was getting the feeling that Austria was actually not super reliable. I had sent a decently long message. One of my favorite alliances is the Austria-Turkey alliance, and so I really like to try to set that up if possible. And so I'd sent a long message, kind of explaining my thoughts on that. And they just sent something really short back. And so I was getting some very, I'd say, sketchy vibes from them that they didn't seem necessarily to be super trustworthy. And so I would have probably changed my orders from Smyrna to Constantinople, but I would have changed my orders from Smyrna to Armenia to Smyrna to Constantinople.
If there had been,
But if there had been a bit more time. But that didn't end up happening. However, Austria ended up moving Trieste to Venice, which I think is, in general, fairly poor strategy, especially for a game where you have time to communicate with Italy. Because, Italy said that this was not something that they had anticipated. And so I think that's really problematic as an Austria player to just not tell Italy what you're doing. I could see Austria making an argument to Italy about why they should get Venice. It depends on whether Italy would go for that or not. But just going into the first turn, not telling people what you're doing makes everyone around the board see that you're kind of distrustworthy or not trustworthy. And so that makes me think that I should support Russia more. So I've been able to patch up relations with Russia. So I'm planning to support them into Ukraine, continue a bounce in the Black Sea, and move Armenia back to Smyrna, which I think is perfectly acceptable for a first turn. It leaves the door open to Serbia moving to Greece, but which can make things a little bit more difficult long term. But it seems like Austria will only be getting one build as well, so not the end of the world. I actually really like Italy, who I've been talking to a decent amount. And so I considered, instead, knowing Russia's orders, I could move Ankara to Constantinople and move Armenia to Sevastopol, and bounce Russia in Ukraine, or bounce Russia in Romania, which could potentially be very good if Germany prevented Russia from getting Sweden. However, Germany has not really seemed too interested in telling me exactly what's going on in that regard. And if Russia got into Sweden, then they wouldn't have to disband anything, and that would then be problematic with them having a fleet in the Black Sea. And I don't honestly really want to look like that sort of to kind of stab happy persona this early in the game, because I think that could really spook Italy, who I'd like to work together with long term, because they seem like a really reasonable player.
Interesting.
So. And Russia, getting more messages now, seems to be a very honest and straightforward player. Even if their messages are kind of curt and short, they respond frequently and have seemed very honest throughout. And so it seems like a player that later, if I wanted to set up a stab, could potentially work out really well, because they do seem relatively trusting. So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, for this first turn, I'm planning to go with the pro-Russia plan instead of the anti-Russia plan.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Anything else of interest you thought you might like to share? Anything that surprised you, or?
I guess the one thing that did surprise me was the bounce in the English Channel, because I talked to both France and England, just kind of chit-chat more than anything, but they both seem to be pretty friendly players who seem pretty interested in kind of setting up alliances. And so I was surprised to hear from both of them that it was an unintentional bounce in the English Channel, which is just such a rare thing to happen, especially with seemingly quite friendly players. So I thought that was a bit surprising. I've been trying to talk to them and encourage them to work their differences out and end up allying with one another. One alliance structure that works really well for Turkey is when France, Germany, and England all work together, the Western Triple, as it's called, because then they kind of attack all of my enemies, and I can kind of grow in the meantime and usually prevent France, Germany, and England from growing too big or encourage a stab between them, and that kind of gives me some opportunities later game. So if possible, I can kind of get that set up. Because all three of them seem like really friendly players, and so I can totally understand them being interested in setting up such an alliance. But we'll see, because I also have this opportunity with either Russia or Italy, really.
That is interesting thinking. I like that you're looking all over the map here, and hope that broad view will serve you well.
Yeah, I found in general that I really like being kind of friendly to the players on the opposite end of the map, especially early, because later it's much easier to ask for favors from them if they at least know that you're kind of a friendly person. and they'll sometimes be willing to provide favors that maybe they shouldn't actually.
Well, I do think that helps. I mean, in a lot of my games, I've noticed that people who are on the opposite side of the map from me don't even really want to talk early on, and that's not particularly constructive. And I certainly want to establish relations with everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I was excited to kind of join this sort of game, which was recorded, because I would assume that the players would be much more interested in, actually putting in the time to talk with everybody, and, make more of that deeper strategic thinking.
Hello, Professor Colburn. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, but first I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell everyone listening which country you're playing.
So, I am Professor Colburn. My YouTube channel is Colburn Classroom. I'm playing as Russia in this game. And just for context, I am by all accounts a diplomacy noob. I started playing during the quarantine, so maybe in May or something.
Well, don't be too modest there, Professor, but why don't you tell me about your negotiations as Russia in spring 1901?
The negotiations went like this. I reached out to Turkey and said, let's do this juggernaut thing and let's gun for Austria. Turkey was unresponsive. And Austria and Italy both were very responsive. But I still saw it as a strategically unsound decision to go after Turkey. I didn't see myself getting anywhere going after Turkey. I just thought, I'd get stuck. So I didn't really see Austria as a plausible ally. So even in spite of the fact that the communications with Turkey were just less than encouraging, I just thought I'd go ahead with Turkey. And so I told Austria I'd DMZ'd Galicia, and I tried to move there and ended up being a bounce. And I was telling both Austria and Italy that, I wanted to work with Turkey, but the clock is ticking, which was kind of true in a way, because the clock was ticking and he wasn't being responsive. But in the end, I was still going to go with him just because. Anyway, he moved to Armenia, and that obviously is not pleasing for any Russia player. I should also say that I reached out to Germany. I sent Germany a message saying, if you block me in Sweden, I can help England against you. If you don't block me in Sweden, then I can help you against England.
Interesting. And how did that go?
I don't think he liked the message. I think it sort of like teed him off that I was sort of like
Starting with threat.
putting a gun to his head without really having a gun to put to his head. So it didn't really work. I reached out to France and England. I guess France was trying to get me to do an opening in the north, and I told him basically that I wasn't going to do that, and I was trying to be friendly with him and keep up relations. So I let him know that I wasn't going to do that. That may have been unwise, because somehow or another Austria found out about my bounce. So I don't know if it was from Turkey or from France. And I think Germany also asked me to open in the north. Let me see who else asked me. There was one other player besides France who asked me to open in the north. Anyway, I didn't see it as, I've seen it done before, but I figured the safer play was to go after Austria. I do believe that it was Germany that asked me to open north. Anyway, obviously England wouldn't want me to open north, so it was Germany. Anyway, Italy was friendly. In terms of who seemed the most friendly in the negotiations, it was France and Italy. But, neither of them can really help me because they're so far away from me. So it doesn't do a lot of good to, have friendly people who are that far away from you. So as the negotiations proceeded, that is after this turn, here's what went down after spring 1901. Italy and I are thinking, hey, we might be facing an AT, since the Austria taking Venice was not arranged by any means. And it doesn't even look like a great stab because, at least that's what Italy told me, I should say. But it doesn't look like a great stab because it looks like Italy could easily just, push Austria back out of Venice with his own units.
Didn't move anything in to support it.
Right. So I'm confused by why Austria did that at all. And but in any case, Turkey is telling Italy and I that we're all interested in moving this pesky Austrian player off the map. And I'm thinking that Turkey is lying and that Turkey is trying to work with Austria to trick us. But at this point, I'm looking for an ally who's close to me, and I'm thinking that I will just try to work with Austria, even though we had the unagreed upon balance the first turn. I just can't deal with that army in Armenia without any kind of assistance. So what I'm looking at now probably is Sev moving to Romania with, I hope, Austria's support. Ukraine is moving to Sev to cover, to bounce from Armenia, I think. And then Warsaw moving to Ukraine, this time DNZing Galicia for real, I hope. And then, seeing what happens. And that's the plan at this moment. I might change the plan, in a couple hours based on negotiations as they proceed. I just saw some new messages on there. But yeah, I'm not in a good place right now, but I guess, the tide could change. I'm not a target in terms of being too powerful. I might be a target in terms of being too weak. Germany could easily bounce me in Sweden, and then Austria and Turkey could easily deny me a build in Romania. And then unless I have someone's help, I'm kind of screwed. But I'm thinking that won't be Turkey. That's the one thing that I seem to be confident about, that Turkey is not my friend. Other than that, that's about it.
And anything else surprising or interesting you wanted to comment on the map?
I guess I didn't mention this yet. I was quite surprised by the bounce in the English Channel. I'm used to seeing England and France go separate ways, and I thought that was like a wasted unit for both of them, actually. So I was quite surprised by that. I guess the negotiations didn't go well, or maybe it was an arranged bounce, but to me it seemed uncharacteristic of at least what I'm used to. I know I'm new to this, but to me it spelled something. I'm not sure what. But then there's also the French move to Burgundy, which makes me think that France might be making an enemy of Germany. So I don't really know what France is thinking to be making a move against England and Germany both. I mean, even if one's a bounce and one might have been a planned bounce, it just seems like he might not have a lot of friends. I guess he can get his builds slowly now and still get them and not have anyone to challenge him in Portugal, obviously, but I'm not sure what's going on there.
It is an interesting set of events happening in the West, huh?
And I should also add this is an anonymous game, and I know a couple of the people playing, but I have no idea who they are, and I don't know them that well. I just know them from diplomacy. So
I think it's for the best that things are this way, to be honest.
I know that. I'm just going to be interested to see who was who at the end of it.
Yeah, it is interesting who's who. Well, Professor Colburn, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I appreciate you dropping in and commenting on this ongoing game. And I will check back in with you soon.
The English perspective.
Upon finding out that I was playing England, I was a little bit skeptical. I've never enjoyed England as much as the other powers. There's a lot of sea territories. You also can't expand quite as quickly as others, and so you really have to, especially in the first turns, make sure that you're on good terms with France, Germany, and even Russia. So for England, the spring 1901 move is usually into the North Sea, and if you don't trust France, into the English Channel. France and I had done some negotiating, but France didn't get back to me, and so I thought the best thing to do was to attack the English Channel, to bounce, and that's what we did. Additionally, I had talked with Germany. Germany they were skeptical of France, and they wanted me to take Belgium instead for fall 1901. Initially, I was on board with that idea, but then saw how France had moved into Burgundy, and how with the German unit in Ruhr, there was a potential either way of me not getting a supply center the first year. And so since that was really important, I decided for the next turn to go to Norway.
The German perspective.
So what happened in spring 1901? Austria opened Trieste to Venice, which took me in Italy by surprise, but basically he said, no, this is part of the Central Triple, and when Italy takes this back, I'll be able to disband my fleet and build another army, so don't worry. And we were like, okay, if you do that, then things should be okay, but both of us were a little bit taken back by the fact that that happened without warning, but I think that'll be okay. I did a pretty standard opening. Oh, England said that they were going to go to North and Norwegian, but they ended up bouncing with France in the Channel. I knew that France was going to the Channel. I didn't know that England was. And so what was interesting about that is that England told me it was planned. France told me it wasn't. I still don't know if it was planned or if it wasn't. France asked me if I leaked the fact that they were going to the Channel to England, which I didn't. I didn't tell England that because, like I said before, I'm leaning towards allying with France against England. TBD, we'll see what happens. And so, yeah, oh, Turkey's in Armenia. Don't know if that's a fake out or if we're looking at a potential RT. So early, who knows what's going to happen? Am I nervous? I don't know. So what am I expecting in the fall? Well, I'm going to take Holland. Oh, France is in Burgundy, which I knew was going to happen. I said I'd prefer he don't do that, but I'm not going to stop him if that's really his preferred opening. He said he likes to go Burgundy to Belgium and then take Paris to Gascony to get Spain because he thinks that covers Marseille better if Italy goes to Piedmont than if he just went Marseille to Spain and Paris to Burgundy. I'm not quite sure I understand, but he said it's one of his favorite openings, so I was like, look, if you go to Burgundy, I'm going to cover Munich. I'm not going to be able to support you into Belgium, but if you go to Burgundy, you can go to Burgundy as long as it's not there in the fall. Otherwise, I'm going to have to build some armies and deal with that. Or not there, yeah. So I'm expecting Burgundy to leave and go to Belgium this turn, fall 1901. England said at first that they weren't going to convoy to Norway, but now they're saying that they might. So I'm expecting them to do that and presumably bounce in the Channel again. So we'll see what happens in the Channel. That'll be interesting to see. It will be, I presume, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens in Romania, whether there's any sort of AT action bouncing Russia out. Well, Armenia cuts Seb. And I'm expecting to see Italy take back Venice and Austria disband that fleet so they can respawn it as an army. I'm not doing anything crazy, just holding on to Denmark, grabbing Holland, covering Munich. So we will see what happens, and looking forward to all that is to come.
I hope you liked this video and found it interesting and informative. If so, I hope you'll join the hundreds of other people now who have liked and subscribed, and I hope you'll check out more of my videos. Until next time, Florida Man out.